Great. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be back at Futurist. And our panel today is on privacy in the agentic future. Since we didn't have any intros, I just want to start it off by going across the line. Please introduce yourself and your company. How about that?
My name is Shaw. I created a thing called AI16Z, which is now Eliza OS. And I am the CEO of Eliza Labs.
Hi, I'm Lisa Loud. I'm the Executive Director of Secret Network Foundation. And this room is echoey, so I'm going to try to speak very slowly and clearly.
Hi, my name is Todd Ruoff. I am from Autonomys Labs. We are a layer 1 built on proofs of archival storage. With the compute layer, we'll be launching in the next 6 weeks, and I look forward to telling you about it.
Hi, I'm Yev. I'm a co-founder of Hacken. We're a cybersecurity consultancy company managing the risks of emerging technologies like blockchain and AI.
Excellent. So yeah, our topic today is privacy in the agentic future. Obviously, we have a panel here who's well-versed in the intersection of AI and blockchain. And that intersection has created enormous economic value so far. According to Van Eck research, there's over 10,000 AI agents in existence today. And that figure is expected to 10x this year to 1 million. So from a market cap of 16 billion to God knows where, but we know this market is going in the right direction. But before we can really talk about the economics of AI agents and agentic AI, the first question is to really ask everyone, how do you define agentic AI from the perspective of user privacy and autonomy? We'll start with Shaw.
I think about this like what is an agent? An agent could be a human, it could be a whatever, but we think of this like from the game theoretical thing is there's a principal and there's an agent. I'm the principal, I have some system, it could be a person, I could hire you, I want you to do something for me. Are our goals aligned? Are you doing what I want you to do for me? How do I know that? How do I, so there's sort of an authentication part of this. Okay, now I'm gonna DM you my credit card. Okay, so now we get into a lot of complexity around like security, privacy, and these kinds of issues. So I think that what an agent is a thing that does something on your behalf. The problems that are inherent in that are numerous and complex. And that's kind of where we're at today is, dealing with not just ChatGPT, but an agent that's out there in the world doing stuff on our behalf, interacting with other users, other agents. Something to really think about.
Agentic. So the word itself, it comes from agency. Up until now, we've had LLMs, large language models, that are really great at responding to us and predicting the correct language sequence that will give us the best answer. Agentic AI is something different because it has agency in the world. So I'm excited about this next phase of AI because up until now, it's been mostly us querying AI to get answers. Now, this next journey is about sending our AI agents into the world to act for us. Of course, that brings a huge risk, because if we're giving agency to our AIs, we want to make sure that there's no backdoor that can be exploited by either a big company or a hacker or anyone else, our worst enemy, to make our agent do something that is not in our best interests. So that's what we're working on at Secret, and that's what I think Agentic, this new journey, is about. It's about acting in the world on behalf of us.
Yeah, I would actually even take that a step further and say there's two different questions there. The first being, what is an agent? And yes, this agent is out on the world and it's acting on your behalf, but not like a bot. Now we're introducing things like reasoning and augmenting processes and having responses based on calculations and a reasoning process that these agents have gone through. From the standpoint of autonomy, we think about autonomy as three things that an agent has to have to be truly autonomous. It needs a place to live, it needs a bank account, and it needs an identification, just like a person would. An agent can't go to AWS and just sign up for storage and obtain an account. There is some light KYC that's required. So what we're providing is a permissionless platform that's over 600 petabytes of decentralized storage. And an agent can actually deploy another agent on the platform, and that's where it stores the data. It doesn't need a subscription. It can use crypto as the payment rails. and Auto ID, which is our ID mechanism. And of course, we're going to talk about other forms of DIDs that are out there, decentralized identity. It can use those for its passport. So autonomy is something that we're really putting a lot of thought into and what this is going to look like in the next wave.
And definitely from cybersecurity perspective, it's all about the risks which is coming in this converge of AI models working on behalf of us. And for me, it's about compound risk coming from both angles that we need even more think about cybersecurity from the ground and implementing the robust safety and security measures while building this. So it's a very powerful combination, but also very risky one.
So if we're talking about AI and blockchain, I kind of wanted to get a sense of what advantages does being on-chain offer in this respect? Can you just kind of walk me through that in terms of on-chain transparency and how that applies to agentic AI?
I mean, from a developer's perspective,
Yeah.
it's just a lot more fun. If I want 10,000 agents, okay, cool, I have my own agent framework, we launch these Elizas. Okay, now they each need to have their identity, give them a name. Okay, I can spin up a private key which can sign anything to prove that they are themselves with one line of code. Just, okay, cool, you have a wallet, you have a wallet, you have a wallet, no problem. It would, how long would it take me to set up 10 PayPal accounts? It would take a very long time, and I can't. I'd KYC for one, and then I'm kind of stuck. So if we want to give agents identity, they have to have some kind of way to cryptographically prove who they are, since they don't have IDs. So that's like the most obvious kind of level one of this, where we're like, okay, every agent has a wallet, and that wallet's not just for money, it's also for proving who you are. And then, you can obviously put that into more of like a smart wallet context where you can say, okay, well, the agent's only allowed to do this thing if I signed off on the thing that it allowed and stuff. So the blockchain as a distributed ledger allows us to track agents for discoverability. Oh, these are the agents I can even find. Like if you have an agent, you want someone to hire it, where do you put that? So you can have a registry on chain. That's something a lot of people, like Near Foundations, a lot of people are working on this idea. If you want, okay, well, that agent's actually going to scam you. So I need some sort of registry to put what agents are trustworthy or which have been involved in scams and some sort of meritocracy system. So this is where we now get into like the future of agent marketplaces is probably also fulfilling a role of providing trust and like, hey, you can trust this agent. You probably don't want to trust that one. Some sort of user rating and reviews and these sorts of things. So I'm at like all these things can just come together. Anybody can release an agent into the network and then be part of the merit system, the trust system, the benchmarking, and all these other things. And that's like there's a lot more, but I think that's the stuff that as a dev I really focus on.
I think Shaw answered it really well, and Todd did as well in the last answer.
Sure. So, when we're talking about agent transparency, I think that there's kind of a fine line and a delicate balance there. In the blockchain space, what we are aiming to provide is transparency. That's what we do. That's why we're putting things on a public blockchain. But equally important is going to be protecting that fine line where there needs to be privacy, but also transparency. So the types of things that can be performed either off-chain or in private compute, so that the actual work that's being done can be public. Perhaps that can be transparent, but the outputs can be private so that only the user who's supposed to see them can see them, and we can do those, of course, with things like encryption and so forth. But in bringing transparency to this next wave, that is really something that we're heavily focused on at Autonomys by, again, we are storing our agent-to-agent interactions and our agent-to-agent human interactions. And we are storing the entire history of the conversation. We're storing the reasoning process. We're storing the orchestration. And this is all permanently minted on a blockchain that anyone can go see, so that there is complete verifiability, there's accountability, and of course the transparency that's needed for the next billion agents that we keep talking about. So this data is going to have to live somewhere, and that's really what we're focused on.
Yeah, definitely you're asking about opportunities, but as a cybersecurity expert, I think about risks. And been doing like on-chain security for the last 8 years. I see that we're getting better on doing Web 2 security, like off-chain security, good. We're like kind of also on the way to do Web 3 security better. And now adding another layers definitely gives us a lot of power. But on the other side, it's a lot of risks that's coming. And I 100% agree that trust layer that should be built for AI is something that we're all here for. And trust environment where all these agents interact safely with user data finance is something on the making.
Well, I mean, one controversial area is, given the immutability of the blockchain, how do we reconcile the right to be forgotten with permanent AI-driven records?
I mean, I'm a big proponent of trust execution environments and FHE. Like, you know, I think we need, most data should be private. One of the interesting things about kind of building a company in the Solana age is that everyone can see all of your finances, and it's kind of like building in a panopticon, and people will shame you for making any business decision you make. And I think that it's just very hard as a builder right now in this kind of thing. Like, we need privacy for ourselves. And I imagine it's going to be the same kind of thing for agents where, like the vast majority of stuff that goes into the context, I don't want anyone to know. Yeah. I do not want anyone to see my ChatGPT history, even though it's not bad, it's personal, and there's a lot of environment variables and secrets which I don't want leaked. So we really have to think, the primary risk for agents is that they're going to get prompt injected or convinced to give somebody something that they're not supposed to give them if they're out in the world. And we need to really think about privacy, and even from the agent. What is the agent allowed to see, share, know, have access to? And then are we really going to give credentials to agents? I think that entire authentication strategy is probably not going to work. And we're going to have to look more toward how do agents come back to us to sign things. So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of issues that I see with that.
Anyone else? Right to be forgotten?
Yeah, it's only a problem. Mutability is only a problem if your data is accessible to other people, really. If it's encrypted, and if everything that goes in is encrypted, everything that comes out is controlled by, with Secret, you have a viewing key. So anything that you want to get out, it needs the viewing key. You have complete control over what is shared. It's not such a problem. I think I never want to throw anything out, so I think immutability is good as long as I keep control of it.
So I would say that this comes down to a few different solutions. When we're talking about storing data on-chain and permanent, which ours is permanent, there is no method to go back and delete it. However, with GDPR now, we do have to provide a way to exercise someone's right to be forgotten. So you can store it on something maybe like a Filecoin or an Arweave, where they can decide whether or not they want to store your data. Our network is permissionless and censorship resistant, so you wouldn't have that right. However, other options do exist. There are things like cryptographic erasure, where all the data is written, but it's cryptographically encrypted so that only the person who owns it can read it. And if they decide they want that data removed, they just destroy the key. If the private key doesn't exist to be able to decrypt the data, now that data is not able to be read by anyone. There's other things we can do to anonymize. We're going to talk about decentralized identities a little bit. That would give you a way to attribute a particular piece of data to a person without knowing who that person is. So that would give us the ability to be able to help anonymize the data. And of course, I think the only other real solution would be something off-chain. We're all in the blockchain space, and we want everything to be on-chain, but we're going to have to realize that, it's possible not everything is meant or can be logically stored on-chain. So I think those are really the three solutions for that, but it certainly is necessary with GDPR compliance.
No, on the topic of decentralized identities, we've seen WorldCoin, for example, come in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. On Cointelegraph, we've covered Brazil and how Brazil has come down on WorldCoin. Kind of walk me through those concerns, and how do you think we can absolve some of those potential risks that a lot of governments are citing when it comes to projects like WorldCoin?
I mean, the reality is that if I wanted another identity, I'd just go buy it from someone in Africa today. So the idea that it's going to be tied, I think it's a pipe dream. I think it's, one, extremely bad, because you're saying that now my identity is tied to my eyeballs, and so now my right to be forgotten is effectively gone. Because if any transaction I ever perform with that private key, or a public key can be pushed back to any other transaction I have, now you can see my entire transaction history. So now you can see everything I've ever bought or sold. So unless you combine that with a privacy chain, I mean, that's terrible, and I'm sure that they'll address that. But basically, like the fundamental premise of WorldCoin is, oh, proof of humanity, and I think that that's just like, okay, hot take. I think it's racist, but less hot take against AI. I'm kind of joking, but seriously, like who are you to tell me that I am a human or not, I guess, is something that we're going to really have to ask ourselves in a few years, especially whether or not the AIs are conscious. We're going to make ones that say they are. They already kind of do that. And so I think this idea of proof of identity in a world where I have agents acting on my behalf all the time, it becomes kind of a farce. Like, I need that agent to be able to access this thing, so I'm just not going to use the world network. Why would I do that? And then on top of that, like, I don't want Sam Altman to have a registry of my eyeballs. That seems crazy. And then if I wanted to get around that, I would just pay somebody in a third world country to use their eyeballs, which people are already doing. And that's going to be used for airdrop farming at scale. So I just, like, none of this makes sense or works. I don't, but if you want to keep putting money into it, like, Sam Altman's a cool guy, I guess, It's sure.
Is your question, what are the risks, or is it more like what are governments doing about it?
Well, both. I mean, we kind of understand what the risks are, and our government's justified in kind of shutting it down in Brazil, for example. And what do we have to see from projects like WorldCoin to absolve those risks or to fix those risks?
So yesterday, the SEC had a second roundtable in Washington, D.C. I mean, it's about custody this time, but they've been holding these roundtables. And yesterday, Commissioner Peirce talked about the fact that there's a sandbox coming in the U.S., and she invited us and a few other projects to join that sandbox, because what she said is that not very many people are actually working with the government. People are talking about working with the government, talking about trying to be compliant, but no one's actually talking to them. And so she kind of put out this plea for people in the US to work with the SEC in their sandbox in order to clarify things like tokenization of real-world assets, tokenization of stock. So I guess my answer to your question is that we have a lot of rhetoric going on stages and on panels and in among us, and we're not actually going forward and trying to solve those problems with government officials. So I think for me the answer is let's find out what they actually think, and let's work with them to mitigate those risks.
Sorry, Sam, could you say that one more time? We can't hear down here.
So I just wanted to know if WorldCoin, for example, has come under a lot of scrutiny by government, especially in Brazil, for example. What can they do to absolve some of those potential risks? So what can a project like WorldCoin do to absolve the risks that governments have?
Something like WorldCoin specifically.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that WorldCoin does as good a job as it can. Everybody is scared of the almighty orb. Nobody wants their eyeball scanned. But what WorldCoin does is, and now we're going to start seeing them proliferate in the US, as I'm sure everybody has heard. Now there's going to be WorldCoin. It's the Wild West all of a sudden. But when they scan that, when they take that scan of your eye, they're only storing a cryptographic hash. They're not storing anything personal about you. It's just this hash itself. At least that's my understanding. One of the things that WorldCoin could do specifically is they could open source the Orb software, which I know has been discussed, to let people see what's going on inside the black box. To the best of my knowledge, that software and that process is still proprietary, which is why people really kind of recoil a little bit. People don't want their biometric data being taken and potentially stored and put out in the wild, and that's understandable. So I think that open source is the answer to that, so that people can actually see what's happening. And I would say the same thing follows along with AI. Open source AI, knowing what's going on inside these black boxes at OpenAI, at Anthropic, and really seeing what kind of biases are potentially going into that data. And again, that's something we're trying to solve by putting everything on chain, but I think this is something the companies themselves are going to need to address by more transparency and potentially open sourcing things that are currently inside a black box.
I have another hot take. I think it's immoral, unethical, and fucked up that they're going to third world countries and paying people to store cryptographic hashes of their eyeballs. It should be illegal. we should not, as an industry, stand for this or allow it. And yet we're all like kind of here. So I'm just going to say, yeah, fuck WorldCoin. Like, fuck everything about them.
'Cause
We
they-
shouldn't enable that.
They give people an economic incentive.
That should be illegal.
If you're in an emerging market and you get
Yeah.
money for that, you're going to be more
They are
incentivized.
taking advantage of poor
taking
people.
advantage of people,
They are
right?
literally taking advantage of poor people, and that's all they're doing.
Yeah.
If you work for them, you should really quit your job. Do something else. That's embarrassing.
Well, to end this on a more positive note, we have a few minutes left. I mentioned at the outset, we're going to basically 10x the AI agent market this year. What are some of the most exciting use cases you're seeing in this market, and where do you see us going in the next 12 to 16 months? And plug your projects, please. Let me know what's going on.
So what we're building is agents that we can use inside of our organizations. ChatGPT is going to be the best one-on-one experience. Like that's nailed. What's not nailed are social agents that actually live inside of our organizations and help us be more productive. We're working on agents that track everyone in my organization and give me a daily update of what they're working on. I have agents that our entire team can post to our social media without anyone having the passwords, because the agent can sit there, and if they post anything that's not, kind of off-brand, it will block that and prevent that. We have a suite of agents called the Org, which we're built. It's all open source. It's part of Eliza OS v2, which we're launching in 2 weeks. So if you're into agents, come build with us. We're looking for builders.
I have two things to say. One is that whatever your use case, Agentic AI should use confidential AI infrastructure. Every agent should be confidential, just for your safety, for the future of everybody. And then the second thing is, I think the most interesting use case for agents is really being able to create. So you don't no longer have to spend years and years learning how to code. If you have just like basic coding and you learn how to use AI very well, you can create anything that you can imagine. So we're shifting the focus from technical implementation to ideation, and that's the big use case, I think.
Yeah, I would close by saying that everybody keeps saying that the agents are coming. The next billion agents are coming. And I do believe that the agents are coming. And again, our approach at Autonomys is that there needs to be transparency and there needs to be accountability. We're tackling that by putting everything on chain. Your entire context window of your AI session. You can encrypt it and put it on chain. You can put it on chain in plain text for other people to see, for other agents to potentially use and get these kind of shared learned experiences. But it's the transparency, it's the accountability, and making sure that these audit trails that these agents are going to create cannot go back and be historically modified if it's in the agent's best interest to achieve its goal and go back and change some historical record. By putting the stuff on chain, we're ensuring that no single entity will ever be able to rewrite history. That's what blockchains were made for, and that's what we believe.
Yeah, and from our side, I'm definitely excited how AI can help make on-chain security better. That's from one side. And from the other side, how we can make sure that these models run in secure environments and in safety environments, following the standards and ethics. And also with the launching LLMs penetration testing, surveys, and advanced cryptography audits, that's something that really excites me to see where is this rationale between AI security and on-chain.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having us.
Now it's changing.